Hey up everybody, my name's Joshua Morrison, director of Johnny Moz's Lessons in Confidence, and today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about lighting. You might have noticed that this shot is a little bit grainy. That's because the ISO is set to 16,000. It looks brilliant, doesn't it? I know, it does look really good. However, I think part of why the ISO is sort of something that people say like that's a last resort, you know, in terms of turning things up, you know, you don't really want to get that. There's two elements to it. Do you want the consistency of having a single consistent look throughout the film? Or is it just necessarily the professionalism of having, you can go past if you want. Or is it the consistency, or is it the, have a good day, or is it the professionalism? I kind of disagree with the idea of showing professionalism in a film, because a film is meant to be like an artistic expression really, and art and professionalism don't really go hand in hand. I mean, what would be professional art? It'd be like corporate advertising, wouldn't it? Like, because that is technically a form of art, but it's not one I think any of us would call particularly challenging art. It's not anything that, imagine you talk to someone and you ask them what their favorite film was or their favorite bit of art, and they said like, oh, the My Money supermarket adverts. It just wouldn't work. It would be really weird. You'd probably look at that person like, are you actually human or are you something else? Something in between. And yeah, in terms of the low light, I am not super worried about shooting things in low light. One, because this camera is kind of all right, but two, as long as you can make things out, as long as everything is visible, what's on the screen is more important than what the screen looks like. Would you rather watch the best film ever on an iPad, or do you rather watch Transformers 5, The Last Night, all 154 minutes of it on IMAX? I know what I'd rather. I'd rather watch the good film on a tiny little thing. I watched Buried on an iPad. It's a film about a guy that's stuck in, Ryan Reynolds is stuck in a coffin for the whole film. And I watched it on an iPad in bed. So it was perfect. That was a perfect way to watch that film. If I watched it in the cinema, I would not have had the same experience. And I really loved that film as a result. So I think getting onto the low light thing in general, I think people can often get a bit too worried about how things look. And the reason for that is because now there is the expectation, or possibly there always was the expectation, from the general world that things need to look a certain way. They need to look like this, or they need to look like that. But generally they need to look slick, and polished, and like the everyday slub Joe can't do it. And I want to challenge that. I want people to go out and make stuff that looks terrible, because look at the lo-fi genre, for instance. I keep using the lo-fi genre as a thing, but it is important, because people that like lo-fi musicians in the 90s and the early 2000s going through to today challenged the status quo and did something completely on their own, from their own bedrooms essentially, and managed to make something really beautiful out of it. And you know, out of all the lo-fi music out there, some of which I probably find very uninteresting, there's some amazing songs, you know, like So I Guess We Can't Hang Out Anymore by the OCS. That's an amazing song. And it sounds awful. It sounds terrible. It's such a bad sounding song. So you've got, I don't think the look of something matters nearly as much as people think. I really don't. And I bet people who clicked on this were sort of wanting, you know, some idea of like, you know, how to make ISO like not as big a problem, or how to make the graininess not look so apparent, or maybe like some de-grain effect that you can add, which I know you can do, but you got to pay like 300 quid for this software, and I'm not paying that, especially because it's all AI enhanced stuff now, and it's like, I'm not dealing with all that. Like, yeah, I feel like maybe people wanted that out of this video, and I'm not giving that to you. What I'm giving instead is just accept how your film looks. Accept that your film looks like crap, and that's fine. Because it doesn't matter if your film looks like crap. What matters is the story interesting? Are the characters engaging? Is what's going on like compelling in some capacity? Because if it is, then who cares what it looks like? You know, at the end, like look at Primer. Primer is a really fascinating film, but it looks like crap. It's filmed on this little tiny Canon Fuji sort of film. So I'll give you a little example of what that looks like. See, imagine everything looked like this for the whole film, right? Now it depends on what the film is. If you've got a good film, this is fine, isn't it? But if you've got a film with really uninteresting characters that are just slabs of wood with mouths on them that are just talking, you're going to get so bored. Even if it's filmed on an Ariel X or whatever, you're going to get bored because it's not the technicalities of art that make things interesting. You know, like the Mona Lisa is one of the most famous paintings ever, right? And it's not a particularly great, like, technical work of art in terms of paintings. There's certainly better in terms of technically made and like that kind of thing. You know, like it's the same way that Dream Theater isn't the absolute best band in the universe because they use the most notes, you know? It's not about what tools you use, it's about how you use them, and that's essentially where things should be going and what you should be doing. You should be trying to make sure that things are interesting rather than making sure that they work on a technical level. Obviously, when you're trying to put stuff into Netflix or whatever, you're trying to submit your thing, you know, there's technical requirements, and that can be a pain. And I can't help with that regard. You know, there's sometimes that we've just got to bite the bullet. But, you know, I think you can have a lot of fun with making things look cool. And if you're willing to let stuff just look weird, then you can make stuff look amazing. So I think that's going to be it because we're kind of fighting the time here. So thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you have a good rest of the day. You know, take care, put some comments in, you know, do all that sort of stuff. Comment about, like, you know, what sort of film that you've done. Like, imagine what's the worst shot that you got that you went back home and you sort of looked and you're like, oh, fuck me, that's actually a really good shot. You ever get that when you're like shooting the shot and you're like, I'm probably not going to use this. And then you get back and it's like, that's the one. That's better than the one that I spent half an hour setting up. So yeah, that's going to be everything from me. Have a good rest of the day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whee! Into the distance he goes.